Hello everyone. I would like to make the next in a series of videos showing off not only the PLATO system, but using an Atari computer to access the PLATO system using the Atari PLATO cartridge. Starting from our freshly booted Atari 800, we go ahead and insert the PLATO cartridge. Thanks to some wonderful people over at cyber1.org, we have a patched version of the PLATO cartridge that outputs the correct terminal type, so that the experience on cyber1.org is even better, especially since there are no color codes mucking up the words. As before, we dial into cyberserve.org. We press next to begin, and in good part because we're outputting the correct terminal data this time, the initial response time to a sign-up screen is slightly faster. At this point now, of course, as always, we enter in our sign-in, press next, which is the enter key. Then I type in my group name. Now when I signed up with the INETD group. After that, I push the Shift Stop key. Now normally what happens, special keys with the PLATO cartridge must be pressed by holding down the Start key and then the special key that you want to press. Now if I wanted to push the Stop key by itself, it would be Start and then S. I need to add a Shift in there too, so F2 Shift S. Now, at this point, we can enter our password, press next, and at this point, since I'm an author, it drops me off in author mode, in which I have to explicitly choose a lesson. And of course, there is help available. And there's actually two different types of help available. If you press the help key, which is Start and H, you actually get a author mode display here showing you the keys that you can press to go into the lesson as a student, to edit the lessons, to inspect lessons, which means when you say inspect lessons, you mean to look at them in read-only mode. Certain lessons do allow that. Or you can press Shift Data for a list of additional options, or Shift Stop to completely sign off. You'll also see down here at the bottom a little glossary. Sometimes as you exit lessons, you'll see references to TIPS, to DAPM, to EM. Now TIPS is thousands of instructions per second. This is just a measure of amount of processing time that's been used. Disk accesses per minute. This is the number of times that the disk actually has been used. Now this is especially of note on PLATO because PLATO emphasizes keeping everything in memory as much as possible. So they try to minimize disk accesses to a minimum, thus per minute. EM is referencing extended memory. In this case, it refers to what PLATO called the ECS, or the extended core storage, which was nominally roughly about 8 megabytes of core memory, which was shared across all the mainframes in the system. So, with that, we'll go ahead and I will take and back out here. Start and then B for backing out. And I will hit Shift Data here, so F2 Shift D. And you'll start to see here, look at this. You have a little menu of options that you can jump off for. Here we go. Such as info, which shows you how to use tutor, notes, personal, the note sequencer. These are just overall system commands that are extremely useful. So with that, we'll actually go in and I'll show you the other help here. We'll go ahead and F2B here, or Start B, and then I'll just type help. If you type help, you get a similar thing here. Sorry, yes, it's actually the same thing. But if you hit enter, it shows you all sorts of interesting starting points. And you'll notice that you'll notice in particular the names of different items in quotes. These are the names that you can type in the lesson prompt to go directly to them without having to go to these menus. Now, of note here, we can go ahead and go to Big Jump. Now, I could just type B here, but I'll take him back out. And type it in there. Big Jump is just a very handy menu of a whole bunch of different games, a whole bunch of different notes files, and some miscellaneous lessons that you can take and jump into. Once you find a particular lesson that you want to jump into, you can then take and jump to that lesson by pressing the J command, jump out to a lesson. You can see it here, boom. And then pressing the lesson that you want to go to. I want to take and go to Battleship, so let's go ahead and go there, 13. Hit next. And as you can see here, we go into Sea Battle. The nice thing about using Big Jump is if you type it here, you don't have to push data to go into that lesson, which I'll show in a minute. There's a bit of a difference. Next. And this is just a good example of some simple interactivity for games inside the PLATO system. You'll say that it's saying 1 moment please. Well, part of that 1 moment is of course doing initial calculations, but part of that is that it's actually downloading a custom character set to the terminal to display the battleship graphics. We hit next to start the game. We'll do a short game, and I'll just do a couple of moves so you can see. Now it tells you need to take and place your ships, no problem, press next. And you can see right here it's actually starting to draw the individual grids. Okay, I'll go ahead and pick a vertical one, number 1. And it tells you that the arrow points to the front of the ship. Where do you want the front of your aircraft carrier? Well, I'll go ahead, I will place the horizontal axis first, and the vertical axis is second, so I'll put 1-6. And as you see right there, it placed that battleship right there. If I like it, I go on. If I don't, I can press data to reposition it. Two. Next. Say 5-4, sure. Maybe I didn't like that. I'll take and hit Start D and put that at 5-3. Okay. I'll put my little cruiser here in a vertical alignment at 8-8. And then finally, everything's aligned, we start the game. We have my display on the bottom left. On the top right will be the computer's display here. Do I want to go first? Sure. Where do I want to put, what do I want to put? The same way we put ship coordinates, we also take and put torpedo coordinates. Boom, okay, nothing there. Now PLATO tries to do a move. Okay, he missed, so I get to go again. Alright. Ooh, he misses again. 7-2, nah, nothing there. Ooh, he hits, so he gets to go again. Oh, and he guessed right here too, so he's probably going to take out my battleship here. Now all he has to do, or aircraft carrier, oh, he's got everything but the top, but he might get that in a moment if he's smart. So let's go ahead and pick another spot. I got one, and so on. You know. So let's see if he actually can finish off my battleship here. And he does. And he sank my aircraft carrier. Would you look at that? Okay, ouch. So with that, since we're done, I want to take an abort out of this. I will take and stop. So F2 ship stop. Or start shift stop. Yeah. Boom. So you can see shift stop is just basically a get me out of here and get me back to the author, get me back to the main part as quickly as possible. And as you can see here, it gives you a little bit of statistical information. This lesson used 0.3 tips and 0.4 disk accesses per minute, and it used about 4,000 words of VM. So, you know, about 8K worth of data, 12K worth of data, kilobytes or so, 60 bits. Anyway, so moving on, I'll take and show some other bits here. Let's say we want to go to the notes files. You can of course type notes, and it will give you a list of common notes here. The most used probably is the public notes files. And as I mentioned in my previous video, notes is basically an early progenitor of what we know today as forum or thread posts. And they work pretty much the same. We can go to a particular thread here. We'll go to number 109. And we can see here I mentioned that I was able to somehow force the terminal to say, I don't know what my terminal type is, please let me select one, and we were able to figure out the correct terminal type from that moment on. We can read the responses. It says right here, press lab for response. So for that, again, start, and then the first letter in lab is L, so L. For the next one. And he's basically saying, okay, awesome, yes, congratulations, but no, there's no way you can actually set a terminal type. Okay, no problem. Move to the next response. And so on, and so on. So we get to the last response, and I decide I want to take and add something to this. Well, of course, we can now hit help. So F2 and H for help, and it will tell you what you need to do for whatever, to, for example, create a new note, to respond to a note. In this case, I want to respond to a note, so Shift Lab is the key that I want. So it says press back to continue reading notes, F2B, or start B, okay. And then start Shift Lab. Yes, we know, almost full, but that's okay. They'll add some more space. And we come into the editor. Now this is a line-based editor, so if you want to take and go back to the previous line, you hit Shift back. That actually goes back, and that actually backs out. My apologies. Do that again. My bad. And once we're done, we can of course then take and if we want to go back a line, okay, back, forward, which is next, etc. So we're done. Shift next, and there's our new note. Bam. That's how you use notes. Now, The other aspect of this is what's called personal notes. If we go ahead, I'll go ahead and exit out the same way, shift stop as always. If I go ahead and either through the menu or through command line here, personal notes is essentially mail. And I'll go ahead and send one to my friend Greg. And I know he's in the Explorer group, so boom. System, no problem. We'll go ahead as before, shift next, and the note gets sent off. Now, other bits and pieces of things that you might want to see, for example, you can look at the list of users that are currently on the system, or users, sorry. And this is a good way to get usernames. The first part is the username, the second part is the group. And you can see me here right in the middle of all of this, in the INET-D group right here, and others. Boom. And at any one of these, if you're on a user list and you see somebody that you want to talk to, you can press the data key and type in their name to initiate a term talk session with them. In which case, it's just real-time talking, and it overlays over the top of whatever they're currently using. So, anyway, go ahead. Stop. Also of extreme use here. If you'll notice, if we go back into help here, you'll find the individual start points. And there's one called catalogs. Catalogs is the official catalog of published courseware. And there are over 16,000 pieces of courseware for all sorts of audiences, from primary school all the way up to a university type education. And we'll go through a couple of these just to demonstrate. I'm going to go ahead and look by subject, so C here. I'm going to go ahead and I'll say a chemistry one here. And I'll look for one that's specific that I know is there. You could say chemistry or ionic bonding, whatever. And it gives you a list of what you can look for, and you can type a few letters to narrow your search, or you can pick a number, in which case I'm going to take and pick chemical bonding here at number 1. And I'll go ahead and narrow down a bit even further. Okay, chemical bonding, and we'll go to ionic bonding here. Now we have a list of the particular course here and a small synopsis of this course. We can get further information if we want it, look at the office of this course, or we can actually go in and try this course. Now we can go ahead and try this course, hit the lab key, start L. And here we go. Gives you a little thing here, and when it pauses, that's an indication that you can hit the next key when you're done reading. Each lesson is broken up into sections, and you can then go to the next section. Okay, I want to go to section 2. And now you can actually start to see not only the graphic parts of it, but when it shows up here in a moment, the touch aspects. Now the Atari doesn't have a touch display, but it does have a joystick, and that's what's used here to actuate the touch functions. And it's basically saying here, okay, certain atoms can easily gain or lose electrons in chemical reactions to form ions. As you might expect, it is these elements that form ionic bonds. The elements on the left side of the periodic table usually form positive or negative ions. If you give the wrong answer, it says no, elements on the left side of the periodic table usually, it'll give you the right answer and give you the chance to type it again. And that's just the way this particular course was set up. The way that Tutor was actually designed, you could build it in a lot of different ways. And again, from this point here, negative. And now it's asking us to touch an element which forms an ion with a charge of +2. Well, in this case, we'll go ahead, we'll choose this guy. We hit our joystick button, correct. Elements in 2A form +2, hit next, touch an element, and go over here, correct, yes, etc. Touch an element which forms an ion with a charge of +1, well, something like hydrogen, of course, bam, etc. And then something with 8 valence electrons, well, that's a noble gas, so boom, correct. And notice that I'm selecting these with the joystick button here and then pressing the next key to go to the next element. Ion with charge -2, and I'll go ahead and pick something wrong here. No, elements in group IVA usually do not form ions, they're neutral, so boom, okay, correct. And so on and so on. We can take and break out of it now. And that's a good idea, that's a good example here of one of the many pieces of educational software. And I'll go to the other direction here. That was a high school course. We'll go ahead and go back and look at, see, it gives us the option to continue from where we were or to go back to the beginning of catalog. I'll go back to the beginning and we'll go subjects. Let's just type nuclear. And now look at here the diverse things that you get. Nuclear waste treatment, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, nuclear physics, reactor operators, etc. And so now let's go ahead and drill down a little bit. Okay, reactor operators. Basic academic training for nuclear operators. Boom. Now at that point we do the same thing. Shift lab, here we go. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, sorry. I hit lab on accident, so let me try it again. I'll do next to continue from where we were. And of course it picks back up where we left off. And I will go lab here, shift lab. Again, as before, it's downloading a character set into the terminal, mostly to help with equations and certain diagrams that it'll show for various reactor components. Again. So, I mean, as you can see, it's a wide variety of all sorts of different things. All sorts, 16,000 different course items that you can take and basically peel through. Trying to see if it'll get us to a short demonstration here. Yep. And so you can see all sorts of interesting information. You can, of course, use the, on certain screens, you can actually zoom in. This one's a touch screen, so it's not going to let us do that. So there, just kind of an example of, I'll go ahead and kill this right here. This is just an example of the types of different courseware that you can see throughout the system. Now, we can go ahead at this point, and I'll just show some of the other more interesting aspects here. I showed checkers in my last video. Chess 4P6 is actually an excellent chess game as well that you can play with PLATO or the other computers. There are multiplayer games such as Empire and Avatar, and you can, let's see here. Let's actually go ahead and go into, if I hit, you'll notice that each of these letters here indicate different functions or categories. These are capital letters, so you have to type them with the Shift key. So I'll go ahead and go into miscellaneous here. And we will go to the next page. There's an interesting little deal here which I can use to demonstrate the scaling capability of the terminal. If I jump to 25, this is dither. And this is an early example of an ordered dither algorithm. So we will go ahead and I will pick a face, B. And you'll say here, the demonstration you're about to see is a dot density grayscale picture generated directly from a photograph using an ordered dither technique. Now at this point here, it then loads the necessary character set into the terminal and then proceeds to draw the picture. Now since we're looking at this in a scaled down form that's not the same resolution as the PLATO terminal, it's not going to look exactly right. Thankfully, there is the ability to zoom in to see this at 1:1 pixel resolution, which we'll see right here. For the purposes of this demonstration, I will actually take and use my warp speed capability to speed this up. We can see that it's a face, and we can kind of make out the outline here. But if we go ahead and hit the control key, we can see here, using the joystick, we can pan around the display and see the result. Not bad, I don't think, especially for early 80s. Not bad at all. Hit control again to get back into scaled mode. Okay, and of course again And for the rest of this, I'm just going to quickly take and go through different games and different programs here just to show the graphical output. Empire. Now since I typed it out here in the command line, it says push data to try this lesson, so start D. New version. And we can see nice and graphical here. And again, so please stand by while we beam you up. Well, of course, this is just downloading another character set into the terminal for this game. As stated before in the previous video, the data rate that's being fed to this particular emulated Atari and cartridge is 1200 bits per second. So, enter my pseudonym, and I'll enter the game just as the Federation. And we can see just a graphical view here. Not much around me at this point, but normally there would be all sorts of stuff around me. Etc. So, Empire. Empire is a multiplayer game, and there are typically a whole bunch of people playing this at one time. So, and then there's Avatar. Some games take longer than others to dump the character sets, no problem. This is a Dungeons and Dragons type game. Set characteristics. Okay, are you ready? Okay, done. I'll be good, sure, male. I'll go ahead and shift next. There we go. Now at this point, you probably want to go to the help lesson to learn how to play the game. So, bam. Straight up Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Is it? Yeah. Moria. And as you can see, some of these games have really intricate drawn graphics here, which look absolutely fantastic. And you'll notice that some of these games have, for example, notes files. If you go to the notes files, then you go to literally a notes display which allows you to discuss about the game. It's tied in directly, which I thought was very nice. And so on. The last thing I'm going to show you here is Panther. I'm going to show you Panther in particular because it's not only a graphical game, but that you can actually, if you notice, the access permissions allow you to inspect Panther, so you can see the code behind it. So we go ahead, try the lesson. And go. Okay. Let it load the character set as always. Enter. Who goes there? It's me. I'm part of the Square Battalion, sure. And again, this is a multiplayer game, so you can get a handful of people in here and start to play, move to different perspectives, locations, change directions, fire turrets, that sort of thing. So now with that, we'll go ahead and stop this real quick. Okay. And we'll go back in again. And this time we're going to hit the lab key. And this is where you edit your tutor files. Very interesting in this respect. So now you get a directory which kind of shows you the metadata of the lesson, when it was first put together, that sort of thing. Okay, great. Now, you can return, and you can start to look at the individual bits of code. Now, each section of code is arranged into units, which become blocks, and you can have a number of parts which have a number of blocks, which have a number of lines of code. And if we go ahead and hit the plus key, we go to the next set of blocks for things like command processing, display, showing the map, firing and tanks, etc. And if you pick a particular letter, you can actually go in and look at the particular code here for study. And it shows you that there's really nothing special. If you take the time and the effort, you can make multiplayer games to run on this system, and you don't have to be the systems programmer to take and install them. All you have to do is go and request some space for your tutor files and put them together. And if the game's good enough, they'll take and put it into Big Jump. And there we go. So with that, I think that's a good starting point to kind of show you guys how everything is set together. And as always, right here, we have help is available with the help key. It shows you how to edit, what to do, etc. So you're never completely lost. Everything uses the same set of keys, the same set of consistent metaphors. So you can, once you learn a handful of keys, you can pretty much move around in the system at will. We'll go ahead and leave the system here. Yep. I apologize. I'm using the P term 2, and it uses its own set of keys. So having to remember that this is here. Boom. Okay. Exit out. And when we're done, we can hit Shift Stop again to go back out. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will take and make more of these as time permits. If you guys have a request for an explanation of how something works, please let me know either on Atari Age or in the Atari Notes files. Oh, I almost forgot. Actually, I'll show this real quick and then we'll leave. Okay, so there is a special notes files for Atari users, and it's called Atarian. Come on in and please say hi. This notes file is for us. We also have our own group called Atari, so we can differentiate users that use the Atari PLATO terminal as well. Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead and jump off here. Oops. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, if you have any requests for lessons or things that you want me to dive into, please feel free to leave a notes file, either a personal note or in the Atari and News Group notes file, or on Atari Age whatsoever. So with that, see you guys next time.